Woo! Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We are live. It is now high time to talk about what I think might be the release of the month. Welcome everybody to VKH Live. I'm your host, Jeff DeWitt. This is the official show of VKH Press, home of the decent degenerates, ruled by the wrench wenches, located in the trash empire. We have the deepest of lore, the dopest of music, the hottest of takes, the latest in news, and the greatest in reviews, I would say. So, yeah, welcome. Maybe we'll give it a few minutes since I started cold, like a cold opening. But I'm just ready to roll with this bad boy. This is going to be interesting. I did not realize. So the last time I brought up the release that we're going to talk about here was in the January streams, and was in the January releases stream at the beginning of the month, and I highlighted it as, yo, this is going to be dope, this is going to be exciting, you should check this out. I did not realize that this was going to turn into the solo release to beat of 2019. I mean, I know we're only a month in, but this is like, I'll have to listen and see which one comes out ahead, but this probably outdoes Asagi's solo collab album that he put out like almost exactly this time last year. So January is just like the month of like, you get one solo album release, but it's a collab album and it's fucking epic. So, that's where we're at. Anyways, like I said, this is VKH Live. It is put on by VKH Press. We are a Visual K and J-Rock and J-Metal news website. We cover primarily Visual K, but also J-Rock and J-Metal that is kind of related in the general area. We do technically cover both. And tonight's stream is about SYU from GALNERYUS. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Our main website, if you ever want to check it out, is vkh-press.com. That is where we did break this story. I'm not aware of too many other sites that were reporting on this, because it almost flew under my radar, like I said, in terms of significance. Like we knew it was coming out, but we didn't know how significant it was. Yeah, so we went in, we've been on a roll in terms of solid news articles and things like that. I got some reviews and interviews and all that planned, so definitely check that out. We also have a Discord link in the description. Strongly encourage you to join that. I'm not going to do it tonight because I'm not sure how long I want this stream to go on for. I'm planning on making these shows a lot longer and covering a lot more topics, or a lot more in-depth coverage of the topics, but tonight I'm a little, I slept weird tonight, so I may start it on Thursday. But anyways, in our Discord, we have a call-ins channel. We're going to start taking call-ins probably on Thursday. Also, we just have a giant awesome community there. We have channels for all different kinds of bands for people to meet and discuss, and they post like things they find about different bands, and make friends, and we're just trying to grow a really cool, and really tightly connected Visual K and J-Rock community. If I say J-Rock, will you guys understand I mean J-Metal? I know this is as well. I know this is a J-Metal, technically J-Metal week, kind of, with the streams here, but yeah. I mean both when I say that. Also, please do consider donating to support the stream. there's a link in the description. It's streamlabs.com/VKHpress. You will get to send a message. I'll read it out on stream. This show is directly reliant on your support to keep it going, and yeah, we appreciate it. So shout out to all the donations in the past, and yeah, that's about it. All right, so who is SYU? Who is this guy? Who is this boy? Let me give you. I'm going to do something special. I'm just gonna play a couple clips and let you know who SYU is, and maybe you can piece it together afterwards. So we're gonna start with this one, and then we got one more. So who is SYU? I apologize if the video's a little laggy, but if you listen, you'll be able to at least hear who it is. Okay, that's SYU. In case you need a little bit, it's spelled SYU, by the way. Recently learned it's pronounced SYU. I will give you one more preview. Also, we did do a listening party stream earlier today. Actually just ended about 25 minutes ago. If you want to go through and listen along with us, if you're watching this in the future. But just in case, I will also play this, so you get an even better idea of who is SYU here. Why are you bringing this guy up to us, Jeff? Who is this guy? All right, here we go. Okay, so that's SYU, all right? Oh, man. So this is one of what I would consider easily like the top musicians in Japanese rock and Japanese metal. This is the big leagues. You probably heard some sounds in there that many bands that you enjoy are probably heavily inspired by. I think the best place to start is to address that. Let me see if I can pull up appropriate image here. So SYU is probably best known as, where's my Okay, I guess. Sorry, I don't want to keep you waiting. Thought I had my band photo ready. He is the guitarist and also the leader and one of the founding members of GALNERYUS. Now, let's see. Can I please have my GALNERYUS photo? So many to choose from, I suppose. Now, GALNERYUS, here we go. GALNERYUS is a very, very prominent, very popular J-metal band. Jesus Christ, I'm trying to just find one photo of them. Oh, there's a good one. There's a good one. I thought I had one a bit more on lock, so sorry about that. You know what? Screw it. I'll just go to their OHP. I'm not happy with the photos I'm finding. Anyways, one of the most prominent metal bands in Japan, I guess currently, and you know, they have been for a while. They've technically been around since 2005 or 2001, excuse me. This is what they look like. Let me see if I can. I'll pull them up one at a time. So you got SYU on guitar, Masatoshi Sho Ono on vocals, okay. So we got SYU on guitar here, and I'll get into the history and everything in a second. I'm just introducing you so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. Taka on bass. Okay. And Fumiya on drums. And last but not least, Yuki on keyboards. And let's see, I think I'll just use this for the photo in the meantime. Thank you, Wikipedia. I just wanted a nice little action shot. So this is probably a few years old. Me, obviously, have SYU here. So yeah, just like a quick run through of GALNERYUS. So there's a lot of this is a band that has a lot of accomplished musicians in it, and they also have a lot of associated acts. The one that I definitely want to highlight is, let's see, is Delhi. So those of you familiar with Delhi, the Grey Visual K band that sadly disbanded years back, they've recently announced a reformation and 10th anniversary live, I guess. I think we have yet to see if it's permanent, but they've also put out a best of album called Delahism X. So Delhi is a very accomplished guitarist named Leda, and he's also member of the band Far East Design, a bit of a gentcore kind of visual kei band, more of an indie project of his. So if you're familiar with any of that, Leda used to be the bassist for GALNERYUS. Okay, so I believe actually, let's see. Yeah, from 2006 to 2009. And then he returned in 2011, I believe, as support guitar, briefly. But he was known as Yuto back in the day. And I believe that was him on bass in the second solo that I showed, which was from Destiny, the PV Destiny. Very successful power metal band. They do a lot of power metal, a lot of symphonic metal, I guess neoclassical metal. Unfortunately, here in the States, a lot of that symphonic and neoclassical stuff just kind of gets lumped in under progressive metal, so it's kind of hard to distinguish. But obviously in Japan, it is very different, or it is differentiated enough that you can make the distinction. So this is the band at the tippy top, I would say, of the pecking order in terms of that neoclassical sound that many of the visual kei bands that a lot of our viewers know and love take inspiration from. Obviously, they take influence from a lot of places, but GALNERYUS is one of the big ones. Like from spawning visual kei bands directly, and I believe GALNERYUS did start out as visual kei very early on. But the vast majority of their career, I think they've been out of visual kei. But yeah, so very influential band for the neoclassical side of visual kei for bands like Versailles and Jupiter and obviously Delhi. I'm sure even like the lesser known but definitely underrated bands like Minstrelix, a lot of people inspired by this band. They made a lot of, their music is actually very interesting to talk about because power metal is kind of, I'm just going to refer to them as power metal generally. There's obviously symphonic stuff and whatnot, but I think overall, generally as a rule, I think it's safe to, I'm just going to refer to it as power metal as the prevailing sound here. And one of the problems with power metal that a lot of people have, and I've heard this from multiple people, and I'm talking like musicians, and I'm also talking about like people that are into, that aren't just like casuals about like rock and metal, like they're very into prog, the different like subgenres of prog and progressive metal and stuff like that. So a criticism I hear across the board is that it's hard for people to like get way into power metal because it's very, a lot of it sounds the same, like it's very similar formula. So the songs all kind of run together if you're, depending on which bands you listen to. What's interesting though is that and it's ironic because the skill level of required to engage in power metal, at least like the speed level required, is power metal is literally heavy metal plus speed metal, and frequently in a symphonic or neoclassical metal kind of setting, you have to be mad talented to participate in this in any way. Keyboardist, vocalist, bassist, guitarist, drummer. You have to be incredibly talented. So it almost seems like a waste to a certain degree that it's so hard, for power metal bands to break out and become their own sound. Now, for a variety of reasons, mainly they've been around for a while. They're very prolific. They've been very commercially successful, due to the prolific nature of their music. It's just kind of grown over time. and they're also very talented. GALNERYUS is kind of like the reigning, overall guy, I would say, for power metal currently. But it's kind of nice. I'll say, since we normally cover like the Visual K bands, and that was part of the reason why I was so keen to write this article here, is because it does involve Visual K artists. But it's there's kind of a nice symbiotic relationship that seems to be going on with the power metal bands in Japan, at least as far as when it comes down into the neoclassical side of Visual K. Because GALNERYUS' music is very long-winded, I would say. It's very verbose. That first solo I played is from a song called Angel of Salvation. The PV itself is 7 minutes and 40 seconds long. Turns out that's actually the short version of the full song. The full song is on the album of the same name, Angel of Salvation, and it's like 14 minutes and 40 seconds long. There's like 5 chorus breaks, I think, and that guitar solo is literally on both sides of that guitar solo section are extended sections of even more instrumentation that is not included in the PV. Okay, so that is that is like GALNERYUS in a nutshell, I would say. Is they make really long, very dense, very masterful novels of songs, basically. That's kind of their thing. That's what, if you like them, that's why you like them, is that they are just going through and they are power metaling the hell out of these tracks, and they are they are making this big presentation. What's interesting about bands like Versailles and even Jupiter and things like that on the Visual K side is that they will bring some of the more catchy pop song influences, oh so subtly, but they're there to kind of have more constrained, maybe shorter versions, maybe not nearly as complex or verbose musically, and that helps extend power metal to a wider audience, I would say. I feel like when you get into bands like Versailles or Jupiter, you've already been in Visual K for a while to begin with, and maybe you started with like some mainstream rock. Like, let's say you weren't like super into rock music at all, and you found this Visual K stuff, and you found some of the more mainstream rock and maybe a bit of the metal side, and then you're like, oh, this is really elegant, this Versailles band, this Jupiter band, this Delhi band, and then you start progressively getting more and more into like the more complex instrumentation. It can be a good recruitment tool to drag you all the way back up to GALNERYUS. And the reverse is true as well. GALNERYUS is, draws in a lot of people that are really appreciative of the instrumentation, and then they, can potentially enter into Visual K through the instrumentation heavy side of Visual K, like the power metal, neoclassical, gothic metal kinds of bands. And even though a lot of those bands, that side of the scene is kind of in decline, progressive metal even is on the rise. So. Like just the general more prog sound. So just like an interesting kind of alignment and connection that can be had there. So and we'll get back to that connection when I jump back over to this article that we wrote and this release. But that's GALNERYUS in a nutshell. That's the best that I can do. It's a very storied band, very storied career. All their music's on Apple Music and Spotify, I believe, or the vast majority of it. I definitely strongly recommend checking it out. See if it's up your alley. There's usually something that just like certain tracks will take you on an adventure for sure. I personally tend to favor the ones with the more epic guitar solos, with the more epic instrumentation breaks. It's basically them trying to outdo themselves, so you just like find the best of the best of the best in there. I also kind of enjoy the ones that are a little bit on the, like, have a bit more kick to them, a bit more edge, a little bit heavier. So some tracks I can recommend as I was, going through their discography to prepare for this stream. I would say Destiny, obviously, since I played that, and Angel of Salvation for sure. I know Hunting for Your Dream was a prominent song. That was an opening for Hunter x Hunter, the anime, Hunter x Hunter that they did. I would perhaps recommend checking out their most recent album too. Let me see if I can make this show in the my little window here. Yeah, so their most recent album came out in 2017. It's called Ultimate Sacrifice. I personally enjoyed Heavenly Punishment, Brutal Spiral of Emotions, which is pretty much exactly how it's described. It's very, very intense for a GALNERYUS song. The majority of them kind of have like that typical anthemic power metal sound, and what's sustaining your interest is how utterly talented they all are. But this one like really mixes things up quite a bit, so that one's quite fun. And then Ultimate Sacrifice, the title track, it's a super epic, track to end the album. I feel like this one was more concise and kind of like really to the point. I know Angel of Salvation is kind of like the classic, the quintessential modern GALNERYUS album, I'll say. But yeah, so we can go into GALNERYUS in more detail on a later stream. I don't want to take up too much time talking about them because I do want to focus on SYU himself a little bit. So, but yeah, let me check chat real quick. Check everything actually. Check my dashboard, and then I'll switch over to talking about SYU in terms of his solo project up till now. Where are y'all at? Decent Degenerate is here. Lauren says, I find it hard to get into power metal. Yeah, for me, and we're going to talk about Unlucky Morpheus because they're a band I adore right now. But it takes bands like Unlucky Morpheus with like a really strong emotional vibe or powerful emotional vibe and kind of badass instrumentation like that they have and GALNERYUS has. If you have both of those, like how Unlucky Morpheus has, I will get into it, but it's quite difficult. So otherwise, for someone like me, power metal is the best for powerlifting, just my opinion. I see. I will have to. I'm not quite ready for powerlifting yet, but I'll keep it in mind for when I get there. 2018 was the year I lost all the weight, and hopefully 2019 is the year I gain all the muscle. So, Angel of Salvation is based on Tchaikovsky's Violin Symphony. Okay, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Power metal starts at the old school, less showing off, so the power metal feeling is emphasized. Yeah. For sure. But power metal is an interesting beast. Let's see. What do I want to bring up? Let's go ahead and, since we're going to be talking about SYU some more, so let's pull up the most relevant thing pertaining to his solo project. which is in fact his last album. Wow, my thumbnails are already showing up in Google Images. This is surprising. I did not expect that. I'm just trying to grab You Play Hard. Oh, this is a good one. I'll just bring up the image. Hopefully that looks okay. Yeah. Yeah, so SYU actually has a pretty short solo career in terms of official releases. Let's see. So his last release, I believe this is his only solo album. It's an instrumental solo album. He has a cover album called Crying Stars Stand Proud that came out in 2010, and he covers, let's see, he's got some pretty significant covers here. He's got, he covers a song by Arch Enemy, Yngwie Malmsteen, he covers a Muse song, Dream Theater, In Flames. So, pretty significant covers, but in terms of, his own solo album, he just has this instrumental, or he did until today, called You Play Hard. Now, we actually just did a listening party for that. We just did a live stream right before this stream, in fact. I strongly recommend listening to the album. It's excellent. Just went back and listened through it together with some other viewers, and just thoroughly blown away. He's an excellent guitarist. He's a top tier guitarist. This is beyond, I would put him above, guitarists like Hizaki and Teru, as talented as they are. I would put him above guitarists like Miyavi, even though it's not quite really relevant. I would put him at or above the level of Leda, at least in terms of what I've seen him do. It's some of the stuff he's able to pull off and just seemingly effortlessly pull off is kind of mind blowing. I gave you an example of that so I could exactly show you the caliber that we're dealing with here, and then we can talk about the ramifications of what do you do with all this talent, or skill. And he is 38, so he's very experienced. Obviously, he's had very storied career. He's mad talented. And actually, what's really funny is that I will use his guitar solos in GALNERYUS. That is what I use when someone asks me, well, why Japanese rock? Why Japanese metal? I don't because if people aren't familiar with this kind of music, it may seem a little out of left field to them if they've never heard of the idea. If you plop them down in front of, a guitar solo by SYU, you can make a very easy case for why Japanese anything music. It's do you see why? I actually showed it to my dad, because my dad knows that I do, all this, Japanese music. But I actually finally went out of my way and showed him that Destiny solo and stuff like that, and it just leaves everybody with their jaw on the floor, and so this similar thing happened to my dad, and I was like, do you see why, if there was English speaking people doing this, I would absolutely be doing it, but you can absolutely know for a fact nobody is pulling that off to this degree right now. And it was I can see the draw, I can see the allure. And obviously there's other less obvious things, their spirit of creativity and innovation is wild, is completely unchained in Japanese music, at least compared to the West. But this is the easiest case, okay? This is the you show them What's My Name by Miyavi, and you show them this, maybe, or maybe you show them like this first, maybe show them, like a shoot guitar solo first, and then you show them Miyavi to like show how they get like kind of funky, and then you get into all the creative stuff afterwards. So, very accomplished guy, both in Japan and internationally. He's recognized by a lot of the guitar greats and stuff. I see him, he's friends with a lot of them at this point. So I see, plenty of social media posts and whatnot. So strongly recommend you checking out, our, checking out You Play Hard, but preferably checking it out, via our listening stream, our listening party stream, because we had quite a lot of fun. We had some fun commentary and whatnot on it. I'll leave a link in the, or I'll pin it to the, I'll pin it in the comments after the stream's over. But definitely take a listen to it and let me know what you think. I guess in the comments as well, since, don't click off now if you're watching live. It was just really enjoyable. You can tell that you could tell that he could just play really complex, complicated guitar solos for hours and hours, no problem on end. It's almost like he has to restrain himself in order to have some sort of creativity and variety. But even in that sense, I noticed he was quite impressive in terms of how well he was able to keep me engaged on an instrumental album. And I'm saying that as someone who's not into instrumental albums usually. It's just, I just zone out. It turns into background music. So it's good as background music, but I need like the vocals or like a focal point of the track to keep me engaged. SYU, on a lot of his tracks, he does a really good job, especially like Hold Your Tongue is my personal favorite, I would say, on this album. He actually does a really good job with, layering guitar recordings over guitar recordings and using like just his mad skill and versatility as a guitarist to construct guitar solo replacements for vocals in a lot of cases. And he's able to pull off a melody, like a core vocal melody, but in guitar solo form. And because he's doing crazy intense guitar solos, your focal point is now this insane, like skillful, series of solos. It's now centered around that. All of a sudden, these songs get way more interesting than even if you had a vocalist sometimes. Sometimes it's less interesting because it's hard to hit that mark. It's hard to hit that mark where it's like, it doesn't just fade into the background as more guitars and no general focal point, and it doesn't, so it's hard to like bring it out and like keep it in focus for a really extended period of time. Because who does a guitar solo through an entire album? Basically, it's kind of what he has to do. But he does it. And he pulls it off really well. Again, strongly recommend. So I was already excited. I had found, that album came out in 2016. I had found it like in 2017, late 2017, early 2018. So I had quite enjoyed that. So imagine my excitement when I was pleased to report that SYU is now dropping a second solo album featuring a variety of people. We can go into them a little bit, I would say. I'll go into a brief overview because we're going to take an even deeper dive on Thursday into some of these bands. Most notably, you have Jackie Vincent, who is one of the founding members of Falling in Reverse, very popular US rock band. He left in 2015, but I would say the earlier Falling in Reverse especially had a lot of power metal influences. If you were listening from the beginning, you probably remember all the very intricate guitar solos for a supposedly post-hardcore band, with like the sleazy lead singer kind of a theme going on. If you haven't figured it out yet, he's doing things different in this album. This album's going to be called Vorvados. I'll jump back up here in a second and finish, or finish the highlighting who I wanted to highlight. But he is featuring guest musicians on 8 of the 10 tracks, and it is quite the talent pool indeed. So like I said, Jackie Vincent, ex Falling Reverse, Dancho from No God, which is another band that's been around, I think, for over, it's significant, definitely over 10 years at this point, which is crazy to think of. I think it's over 10 years, because their 10th best of was a few years back, so that's still crazy to think of. But No God has kind of got like, there's some power metal influences, or I don't even want to call it power metal influences. They're largely heavy metal more than anything. They have like this power metal vibe. Like the vocalist, Dancho, has an awesome voice, I would say. It's almost like if the vocalist of Golden Bomber had like a power metal enhancement that he got to his voice, and then sung about an octave or half an octave higher. That's Dancho from No God. It's very enjoyable. Also featured on a track is going to be Sono from Matinrue Opera. Matinrue Opera is actually one of the ones you can draw like a bunch of direct parallels between Matinrue Opera and GALNERYUS. They're not really, I don't know if they're directly inspired by GALNERYUS. Obviously, there's an association here, but Matinrue Opera is the Kohai band of Versailles. Like Versailles is their senpai band. Japanese terms. Hey, hello, fellow Japanese people. I can use your terms. Versailles is the senpai band for Matinrue Opera. So Matinrue Opera does a lot of symphonic rock, symphonic metal. Their name translates to skyscraper opera, and they kind of fall in that theme in that it's almost like a futuristic kind of symphonic metal, historically at least. They had an amazing guitarist named Anzi up until recently, when he left a few years back. I think we'll go into it on Thursday, but I think they may have resolved their issues in terms of that with their latest guitarist that they have. Historically, obviously very skilled guitarist, also a lot of emphasis on smart use of the keyboards. Like the keyboardist employs a lot of very almost ethereal kind of keyboard melodies, and he's also very skilled, very able to go kind of toe to toe with the guitarist in terms of duets and stuff like that. They also do almost incorporate some more it's much less. It's power metal. It's hard to call it power metal, I guess. It's just definitely symphonic rock, symphonic metal. Almost with a bit more of a alternative metal kind of kick to it, or vibe in terms of the emotion. Their music's very emotional, very powerful atmosphere, especially in their heyday. Strongly recommend Matinrue Opera. That's a great band. So it's really cool to see him featured here, because they've been struggling for a while since they lost Anzi, their guitarist, I would say, to rebound, and we'll get into why that probably is on Thursday. But honestly, it's quite understandable considering who he was, how talented he was, and the fact that he just leaves. the fact that not the fact that he just leaves, but it's like when someone leaves, you don't just get to replace them in your formula, so your band formula. But yeah, so that's Match and Rapper, that's Sono. He's rocking a pretty cool look here, by the way. I saw the entire band look, and so is No God. Like, these guys their look's on point right now. And speaking of someone whose look is always on point, whose voice is always on point, who, if God is a woman, it is her. This is Fuki. Fuki is the vocalist of Unlucky Morpheus right now, and also of her own of another project she runs called Fuki Commune. If you don't know her from Unlucky Morpheus, you need to pay attention, because that is the power metal band to beat right now. That is the new up and coming power metal band. And I'll get into that in a second. But you may know her from the past as the vocalist of Lightbringer, which is now disbanded. And Lightbringer was like one of the first Japanese power metal bands that turned me on to power metal at all, much less Japanese power metal. She had like bright blonde hair back then. She's kind of been doing like a purple. She had dark purple hair, and then like dark brown hair, and now she's kind of circling back to white and then blonde, I think, in the more recent ones. So. But Unlucky Morpheus is a magnificent band. I'm starting to suspect that they are the Wagaki band of power metal, in that it's kind of like a pseudo super group of like just really low-key talented musicians that kind of came together. Maybe they have some clout, like the members of Wagaki band, like they weren't a super group in the sense that they were all really famous. They were all fairly internet famous in terms of like covering instrumentals and stuff, or covering, not covering instrumentals, in terms of they all had like their own individual channels on like Nico Nico. They were basically like Japanese YouTube covers and stuff. So Wagaki band's kind of like Japanese pentatonics, I suppose. But Unlucky Morpheus existed for years as a Toho cover band. I hope I'm saying that right. It's Touhou. And I'll get into that a little bit more later, but again on Thursday, because it's kind of an out there thing to be a cover band of, at least to someone as a Westerner looking in. But from what I understand, it's in reference to the Toho Project, which is a series of 2D bullet hell shooters, and so they were covering that music. I hope I'm not woefully misguided on that. I feel like I've circled back just to triple check that that's true a few times, I think. But anyways, Unlucky Morpheus has some significant members in it. Some of the musicians were in, off the top of my head, some are from Undead Corporation, for anyone who's familiar with that. That's a pretty cool band. The violinist is Jill from, oh no, I can't draw a blank on this one. From Rose Noir, which is a Visual K duo, brother-sister duo. She's the sister, obviously, signed to Starwave, and they're actually wonderful. So if you look up Rose Noir Feed, FEED, there's a PV for that. That's like a beautiful song. But she is now in Unlucky Morpheus, along with Fuki, along with these members of Undead Corporation. And the music they're making is phenomenal. It's exactly what I was talking about earlier, with it's like the mixture of like powerful, emotional, badass kind of vibes to it. Just really like intense and tight, really tight. There's something about them. There's something that just feels modern and on point about their composition. It's not like power metal song number 839. It's just, tightened up and differentiated enough for it to stand out from the other power metal bands out there. And at the same time, just hyper talented, hyper skilled. We'll get into them more. I want to give them their proper time in the sun, or in the spotlight on Thursday. But she is featured on this album as well. We can kind of go through, I can go through some of this. There's only some that I can kind of provide any more context on, but Fuki is on 2 of the tracks, I believe. There's another repeat vocalist called Haruka from a band called Tears of Tragedy, which I am not actually familiar with. I could look it up, I guess. Tragedy. Yeah, they're just a metal band, a Japanese metal band that's been around for quite a while. I shouldn't say just a metal band. They're probably like a big deal because everybody else on here is a pretty big deal. So Yuki from GALNERYUS, so Shu's bandmate, is on here. I think this is going to be interesting because track 7, Kakotopia, is got vocals by Shu himself on here, and Masatoshi Ono from GALNERYUS, the vocalist of GALNERYUS, is also on a track. He's got an interesting backstory in terms of his relationship with GALNERYUS, because from what I remember, he took over as the vocalist after the last one. The original one left in 2008 due to musical differences, and so Shu from GALNERYUS is 38, right? But Sho, as he's called, or Masatoshi Ono, is he's 51. So, you had this power metal band that was formed by people. They were everybody in GALNERYUS at the time that he came on, from what I understand. They were all very experienced, even going into GALNERYUS. Then they've been solidifying this band, rising in prominence. And then you get this really experienced 51-year-old power metal vocalist that just jumps on. And so the initial impression of GALNERYUS is that they're no offense to the guy, but it's more just because it's you can tell he's a bit older, but he's also hyper skilled, the the power metal vocalists of yore, of a almost forgotten age at this point. So you hop on and you're oh my god, this band's been around for this band has to have been around for 30 years or something. And it's nope, they've just been around since 2001 actually, so 18. So that's always been interesting to me. Dogen from 10,000 Eyes, Akane Live from Live Moon, and Jackie Vincent. His current band is called Cry Venom, by the way. And it comes with a sticker. But I'll give you a cool sneak peek at the article we're going to put up tomorrow morning, because I just saw this. It just went up I think a few hours before the stream started. But they have that article that I have, and the link to that article is in the description. If you go and there's a album sampler that's unlisted that I found and included in the article, so you can listen to the album. But they just put out a full PV for Reason, which has got Fuki on guest vocals. So so I actually just watched it in between our listening party stream and this stream, and so I can give my initial first impressions on this. I can wait until I'm hoping that this means that the album's going to come out on Apple Music and Spotify, possibly even tonight at midnight, which will be the 23rd for us here in the West officially. At least it'll be that in an hour and a half for me. For me. Not how time zones work. So I will say, from the PV itself, it's very obvious. This is the most borderline visual kei that SYU has looked in quite a long time. You could probably tell that by his look in. Let me see. Let me bring that article back up. You could kind of tell that from, oh, this wasn't the one I wanted, but you get the point. You could kind of tell that from like this look that he has for Vorvados. But it really does, kind of show up here. Fuki is looking phenomenal here, looking like a snack. Sorry, I shouldn't speak about God herself like that. I call her that because I call her like I saw someone comment on an Unlucky Morpheus video, God is a woman and her name is Fuki, and it's just, she has like amazing power metal vocals. Where's a good shot of, yeah, that's pretty good, I guess. Now SYU does do backing vocals here in this song. So you get kind of a sneak preview of what SYU's backing vocals sound like, and it sounds like some decent, low kind of tenor vibrato. Sounds pretty solid to me. Sounds like the guitars from Wagaki Band, actually. Sounds a lot like that. Sounds a lot like that guy. So if you're familiar with how he sounds when he sings, because I know he sings on a few tracks, and frequently harmonizes with backing vocals for Wagaki Band songs, that's kind of what you're looking at here with SYU. So SYU sings now. If he didn't sing before, he sings now. I don't know if this is the first album he's really doing that, or like the first time he's really doing that, but yeah. Fuki really let loose on this track in ways I actually don't know if I've heard her do on Unlucky Morpheus yet. She hit some really high and intense notes. So I was very impressed by that. It kind of felt like in places, on the one hand, it would feel like it's Fuki just getting the opportunity to flex as hard as possible in terms of like her skills as a vocalist, and basically do like a Fuki version of GALNERYUS in a song form. It's kind of what it started to sound like maybe in the beginning, and then towards the middle and end they started to take turns just like getting creative and showing off with how they show off their skill and their talents, both SYU shredding on his guitar and Fuki really letting loose with the vocals there. So overall I was pretty impressed. I don't know how good of an indicator it is for the rest of the album, to be frank with you. I don't know if all of the tracks are going to, I don't know if the two the two tracks that don't have any vocals, I'm guessing it's the two that don't have any vocals or don't have any featured artists, and then there's the seventh track that's just SYU on vocals, no mention of vocals on the first and the last track. I don't know if those two are going to sound like how all the other songs on the 2016 album sound. And then like the rest of them are going to sound like some interesting collaboration sound where you get like part of him, part of the vocalist, like how much of him versus how much of the vocalist. That's always the question with like Miyavi's Samurai Sessions albums is, especially when he doesn't sing and he has someone else sing, it's like, well, how much of Miyavi do you get versus how much of the vocalist you get? And it varies by collaboration. So I would suspect that it's going to vary by collaboration here. But I'm very curious, I'm very excited because Fuki's on another song as well. Fuki's on 2 tracks. Really enjoyed this, was really impressed by it. was really impressed by the overall sound of the album preview more than anything. I'm just curious to see what the ratio of like SYU showing off his instrumentation, the ratio of that to the vocalists being showcased, like what that's going to be and if that's going to work out. I suspect it might work out because the only main thing that mild criticism you could say about You Play Hard was there were times where he wasn't quite pulling off the whole you can do cool guitar solos instead of vocalists kind of thing, because that's really hard to pull off in general. So to try and pull it off for a whole album is kind of unreasonable. So there were definitely parts where I was thinking, and chat even was going as well, was going we could use a vocalist here. I think it'd just be better if you had a vocalist and he focused on the dope riffs. So I think it's going to be a net benefit for sure, because the talent pool for who is showing up here is going to be epic. And the other thing to consider is that not all of these are vocalists. Some of these are guitarists. Some of these are the features are guitarists, and some of them are one of them's a keyboardist. So it's going to be a really interesting album. So I need to listen to this PV and watch this PV a bit more before I give like a real more final verdict. Like, I don't know if it's going to stick with me as hard as some of the other ones did. I just remember being, I just remember noticing that like towards the beginning, it kind of felt like, Fuki's take on GALNERYUS, and then towards the back half of the song, I was like, oh, look at that. Suddenly, here's a bunch of really badass guitar playing, and oh my God, listen to those notes Fuki's hitting. So yeah, I'll have an article up with that PV tomorrow, and maybe we'll see if I'll have streaming services links to post about as well. But yeah, that's about it. So in terms of plans moving forward, we're kind of dependent on the listening parties. I don't do until they're up on at the very least Apple Music. I try to wait until Spotify, unless it just looks like the band is not on Spotify at all. So there's been a few cases where it's been Apple Music only, but Apple Music's pretty cheap anyway. So I try to keep it like a free music source if we're going to do a listening party for it, like a free official music source. So we'll see when he uploads, when SYU uploads the album, and fingers crossed that he does. And when he does, I'll probably schedule it for like 2 to 3 days after, just so that we can get the word out. Because I feel like, I was talking with Winona, and I feel like a lot of people would enjoy this, and definitely a lot of people, definitely the people that turned up for the listening party quite enjoyed it. It seemed like, and that was for the 2016 album. So yeah. Like I said, in the meantime, what is set in stone is on Thursday at, let's see here. What day did I set it for? Or what time? It's either 9 or 9:30. Everything is so slow when I'm streaming. What's chat saying? Chat is happy with SYU looking Visual K. Well, my tin can internet is crumpled. I guess this means I should go to bed. Good night, everyone. Good night, Lauren. Sorry about your tin can internet. Tears of Tragedy is symphonic power metal, similar to Massenet Opera. Okay, cool. Thank you, Chimera Blitz 007. Fuki was in Unlucky Morpheus first, just FYI. Yeah, I guess you're technically right there, but I feel like more people know her from Lightbringer because of YouTube. So, I mean, for whatever that's worth, I knew her from Lightbringer. Toho cover music seems just very niche to me, so and I know, and Lightbringer got quite a lot of views, so I don't know. Anyways, have it scheduled for 9:30 on Thursday, January 24th. Gonna be going through, gonna be doing a whole roundup of J-Metal. I've decided it's gonna be a pretty nice long stream. I want more of the streams to go in that direction anyway, like I said earlier. So the main focus is gonna be like what I have in the title for it, which is gonna be the artists that are being featured on the album, at least the Visual K and the two Visual K vocalists, and then Unlucky Morpheus has, you know, artists from Visual K acts, so we're going to start with those. So we're going to talk about No Gods music, what they've been up to, what Match and Rue Opera has been up to, what Unlucky Morpheus has been up to. But then I'm going to go ahead and, you know, talk about other J-Metal, you know, artists as well. And maybe look into some of the bands on here. Oops, I was thinking I had the track list up. But yeah, like maybe looking into Tears of Tragedy, looking into, I mean, screw it. Might as well look into Jackie Vincent's new band as well. So, and then, you know, whatever, you could super chat me or donate and make me talk about a metal band, and I'll talk about it there too. So we could do that, or otherwise I'll check chat in general maybe and see. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. But going to be talking about a lot of J-Metal first, you know, starting with, you know, related to SYU, maybe related to SYU and GALNERYUS, maybe talk about Delhi or something, and, you know, just have a nice big old J-Metal roundup. So the 2018 Psy album was awesome also. Please notice them, please. All right, I'll see what I can do. No promises, but I know some people have told me to at least check out that band. So let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to cover? I think that's about it. I'm just hyped that we have at least a full PV track that we can listen to and jam to until the album comes out. If it takes too long, I may just have to get the album myself, like order a physical copy. I'm kind of taking a bet here, or taking a risk here by not having bothered to pre-order it. But I wasn't really feeling the album artwork, to be honest. And I kind of like to order physical things that I can put on display. You know, why I like J-Rock albums in general, but especially like Visual K or Visual K adjacent, if you want to call it, like music. Oof, excuse me, that neck crack there. But because it looks like art, like the album covers and stuff usually. I just wasn't feeling the Vorvados one. Dope name though. So if I do have to order a physical copy, I'll be a little behind the ball. And then if it's still not widely available by like the end of the month, I may just write a review for it. And then maybe do a listening party if there's enough people interested. People have bought the physical copy. But we'll see. I think since they're so on it already about you know, having the PV up already and available in the US, and not a short version, it's a full version, I believe. And unless they shortened part of it, and it's like a much longer epic song or whatever. But yeah, and since SYU's full album is already on Apple Music and Spotify, pretty confident that it's it's going to come out. So yeah, I'll keep you all posted on that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching and for hanging out. And if you're watching this in the future, like, let me know what your favorite SYU song is, what your favorite GALNERYUS song is. The comments section, if you missed the live thing, we love to hear what you say in the live chat, but the comment section is always open. I will read and respond to comments and everything like that, so you can keep the discussion going even if you're having to watch the recording. So yeah, I think with that we'll just go ahead and wrap it all up. Thanks a bunch, guys, for watching again, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. Let me know what some of your favorite J-metal bands are currently. Join our Discord. To keep in touch that way. Best way to get notified about streams by far. And yeah, stay rad, stay metal, stay brutal, stay epic, stay symphonic, stay powerful, stay metal. All right, guys, I'll see you later. Peace out.